In this video, I'm going to talk about my work, design of the narrative book collection, redesigning pre-modern Japanese books in the digital age. And in this talk, I will cover 4 topics. I'll first talk about the refined design I made after the first iteration of the narrative book collection. Next, prove the concept of the narrative book collection by examining both quantitative and qualitative data. Then, move to the conclusion of this research, and lastly, share some of my thoughts about Japanese context. Continuing from the pilot study and prototype experiment, the fourth run of the Japanese Culture Through Labor course, together with the narrative book collection, took place in autumn 2017. First, I will briefly describe the refining process I did for this version by following this design process. During the fourth course run, I received constant feedback from the learners and made 2 major iterations, the second iteration and the third iteration. And first, for the story formation, based on the results from the prototype, I defined genre and timeline to the distant viewpoints. Then for the close viewpoints, I added binding style and writing style. For the data generation phase, I digitized 53 new titles. And finally, for the third iteration, I added the spine images and published all of the bibliographical information we had online. Then, at the story-driven data analysis phase, I worked on the improvements for all viewpoints: the genres, binding styles, color, shapes, writing styles. Then, especially for the timeline, I changed the way for interaction from clickable to draggable to make the actions easier. Then, at the visualization process, the main improvements for the bookshelf view was to change the interface to a single page interface and offer multiple filtering that facilitate browsing. And in the bookshelf, learners were also able to switch the cover to page images and shuffle the images that may lead to new discoveries in the collection, and search by text that helps to find specific titles, and generate unique URL which allows to save and share their own filter settings online. Furthermore, Book View was developed from the previous zoomable image page. By accompanying bibliographical records in Book View, learners are able to deepen their knowledge in particular books. The seamless linkage among the future learn course steps, Book View, and Bookshelf View provides an open-ended environment where learners can cultivate their own pathways and wander around the collection. There are several pathways that can be followed, with mainly 2 touchpoints. The first one is the bookshelf view itself, where the user can visualize the whole content in a glance. The journey can start from the timeline that gives immediate response, filtering the contents according to the period of publication. Then, after clicking one of the books, the learner can jump to the book view, where the other pathways can be followed, such as X, zooming in the pictures, or Y, different filtering features, or Z, jumping to the future learn course step. The other touchpoint is the course description in the future learn course step. From the link published in the course step, The learner can jump into the book view and then have access to the pathways, such as X, Y, or Z. Now, I would like to talk about the proof of concept. I use the third iteration as the proof of concept of the narrative book collection and examine both quantitative and qualitative data generated from the learners. First, in quantitative data, as for the enrollments in numbers, although all numbers are decreasing from the first, second, and third run, the related number of returnees have increased. Returnees are defined as those learners who registers for at least one past course run. And as shown in this slide, the fourth course run showed 21% of returnees from the past course runs. And by examining the access log, as a number in each arrow indicates, large number of learners were exploring the path throughout the course steps, book view, and bookshelf view. Going more into the details, inside bookshelf view, analytics indicated that there were about 3,500 clicking and dragging with all 6 viewpoints. As for book view, there were about 2,600 sessions in total, with access to 12,000 books and 18,000 images. And the average access number to book view and images per day were 4.4 books and 6.7 images. And the access to the books were coming from FutureLearn as well as bookshelf view. The average access to the books per day, the daily average, was 165 books from FutureLearn and 77 books from bookshelf view. Accordingly, I could identify and categorize the user flow in these three different broad pathways, A, B, and C, which leads to deeper qualitative analysis. Now, for the qualitative data, first, I examine the comments and survey results. As shown in this slide, most comments were positive with the design and the way it was implemented in the course. Yet, what was most important in examining the qualitative data was to dig into the flow and interactions made by individual learners, find out the patterns of their behavior, and discuss how the interface enhanced their learning experience. Therefore, based on the outcomes from the pilot research, I will now share the journey of the learners that represents the three context areas: work and study, personal life, and leisure. Not to mention that I don't just make up the scenarios. Despite the fact that I have some restrictions in collecting and analyzing data, the following scenarios are all based on real evidence collected from an access log, survey, and interviews. First, Satoshi is a 48-year-old librarian who lives in Japan and works with a special collection of rare Japanese books. The reason he joined the course is because he wanted to deepen his knowledge not only for his career prospects, but also for his personal interests. In fact, he is a returnee and it was his second time taking the course. This time, he took the course for only 1 week, yet he did not intend to complete all the course. For him, the newly integrated bookshelf view was something interesting, and mainly through bookshelf view, he found interesting connections among the books, which he hadn't seen before. Casey is a retired English teacher in the age of 65. The reason she joined is because she likes learning new things and loves the culture of Japan for many years and wanted to learn more about Japanese culture. And for a whole month, Casey visited a course in every 3 to 4 days per week and access to almost all books book view page. In fact, she was not so sure about the usage of Bookshop View and never visited. But learning about the books through the course materials, together with the book view, did fit her interest. Emma is an 18-year-old university student who studies art history. Although she does not speak Japanese and has never been to Japan before, she was interested in the traditional Japanese art forms and decided to take this course to cultivate a better understanding of Japanese art through books. Throughout the first learn course steps, book view, and bookshop view, she liked exploring the history and the idea of making beautiful objects as well as unique calligraphies. For her, the combination of all contents created flexibility and provided multiple pathways in her learning experience. Based on all those insights, findings, and learner's journey, as a result, the narrative book collection enabled learners to enter into a new dialogue alongside the course topics. The implementation of narrative book collection enhanced and transformed learners' experience and proved that the concepts can make the learning experience more exploratory and further deepen learners' knowledge of Japanese culture. These results led to a discussion in open education and interface design. First, from the results and findings, some clear satisfaction emerged and ensured that the experience and interaction with the narrative book collection was pleasant for the learners. However, all learners had different motivations, interests, and experience, so it is important to remember that this research did not determine how people learn most effectively. Instead, this research suggests how the interactive interface could best support each learner to accomplish their own learning goal. And through observing the learners' dialogue and their social action, this research created a sense of community well beyond the course and led learners accountable to it, which leads to a need for further investigation in longer effects on their lives. Now I will quickly conclude this research. I believe that the narrative book collection accomplished this goal at a certain level, offered a new dimension in interacting with rare Japanese books on the internet. However, it must be noted that there are several limitations in this study that have to be mentioned and considered in future research. First, due to the different policies and ways that the data was generated, there were restrictions in the use of data, and that might affect on the findings and insights. Next, all methods I used in this study is not the only one or way in processing design research. It is worth noting that there are several other methods that could be taken. Thirdly, in terms of accessibility, the narrative book collection was built in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and able to run in modern standards compliant browsers. However, further consideration and commitment is needed with inclusive support. And here are the three categories for future research. Here, I will not go into details, yet this research can be further developed in either or every directions. That was all about the design of the Naruto book collection. Yet, related to this topic, I would now like to share some of my thoughts about the Japanese context in the web. As mentioned earlier, there is a uniqueness in Japanese culture and context, but on a global scale, especially in the World Wide Web, what happened and happens to those contexts. First, let me show you two images originally designed in the States. The one above is a poster of the movie La La Land, and the one below is a website of Starbucks coffee. How do you see it? For me, it shows the latest trend, simplified, yet contains enough information with nice image. Then, let me show you the images made in Japan. These. You get this design for the same content. Too many text, cracky images, cluttered layout. You can see this happening in many Japanese-made websites, also in educational websites like this. Why is this happening? If you go online, you can find many criticisms and assumptions made for this. But in one word, I would say that it's because the majority of Japanese people are very conservative and does not like things to be changed. And that mindset remains the design language to be kind of old-fashioned. In this example, including many text, images, and information as much as they can. Well then, if you are designing and showing something on the web, do you think this kind of localization of design is a must? Or can you think of some other ways? Next, about the writing style. All Japanese text can be written horizontally, just the same as English text. And in fact, nowadays, almost all the websites, its contents are designed to be read horizontally. However, in Japan, we have been using vertical writing style from ancient times and still being used in printed materials like manga and in the digital environment as well. Despite the fact that in these days, this vertical writing style can be seen only in domestic environment. Can it be used more widely and freely on a global environment? How do you see it? For your reference, there's one interesting project launched in Japan called the Web Awards for Horizontal and Vertical Writings, which started in 2015. I mean to encourage the use of vertical writing and drive globalization of the vertical text layout. Another unique context can be seen in the way Japanese people behave online. Comparing with the West, people often say that Japanese people tend to be quiet, less talkative. Well, being a Japanese, I do admit that. However, when Japanese people goes on the internet, they suddenly become very chatty. There's many online text support websites, and some of you might know that the term and use of emoji originates in Japan. And what's more interesting is that they become talkative only when they are anonymous. Let me give you one example. On our future learn course, as you can see in this chart, we get many online learners from Japan, following UK and the States. This is quite unique because Future Learn is not that known in Japan still, and all other courses has only few Japanese learners. But anyway, what's interesting for us was that in all of our courses, the number of social learners who posted at least one comment in the course were almost half of the future average, and we rarely saw comments from Japanese learners. We assume that the reason for this is because future learn shows your name when you post comments, and Japanese learners hesitate to release their real name and profile on the web. How do you see this difference? The complexity between real and online, anonymous and non-anonymous. Should we just leave it this way? Well, there is no answer right or wrong in all of these points. But I think it's worth considering to see and look deep into the difference in the way people feel, think, and behave. Well, that was all for this video. But if you want to study more about design, the way of thinking, here are some books that's very easy to read. And if you are interested in web design with practical writing style, you can go to the website here and check some great examples. Last but not least, if you're interested in Japanese culture or design, Keio University Future Learn Project team offers several online courses on future. It's all free, and we don't expect you to complete all the course. We just hope that you enjoy the course and find out more about Japan. And that brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.